Hey, what's up, everyone? If it feels like your life just isn't moving, even when you're doing visualizations, affirmations, trying to feel like you already have what you want, the problem might not be the technique. The problem might be that your mind is still treating what you want as something far away. And as long as that keeps happening, time becomes your enemy. What almost nobody tells you is that for your mind, anything that stays in the it's going to happen zone never actually lands in your real state. And when your desire stays trapped in the future, you keep thinking and acting like someone who hasn't gotten there yet. The only reason I was able to break through this was when I realized something simple. It wasn't about imagining harder. It was about stopping the habit of relating to what I wanted as if it was still on its way. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you here, because once you understand this one thing, it becomes really clear why some people actually shift and others spend years just wishing. But before we get into that, real quick, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because every week I bring you content about manifestation, mindset, and money, but always in a way that's logical, direct, and without the fluffy stuff that just leaves you more confused. And hit the like button too, because that helps this content reach more people who are stuck trying to change their lives but still don't know what they actually need to fix. Alright, come with me on this. You've already noticed something's off, right? Because you do the work, you try to visualize, you try to feel it, you try to believe. But every single day you wake up and the first thing that pops into your head is, has anything changed yet? And so you check your bank account, you check your phone, you check if someone reached out, you check if something finally started moving. And the more you check, the more it feels like it's taking forever. Time starts to feel heavy. Every day without results weighs a little more. And you start thinking, how much longer is this going to take? I was stuck in that loop for a long time. I was doing everything I was supposed to do, but when I laid down at night, I knew deep down I was still waiting. Waiting for it to arrive, waiting for it to happen, waiting for confirmation. And the problem isn't that you don't know what to do. The problem isn't that you're not doing enough. The problem is that as long as you treat what you want as something that's still coming, your mind keeps running in the state of someone who doesn't have it yet. You try to relax, but your body won't relax, because somewhere underneath, you're still in waiting mode. So you go back to the technique, you try again, you feel it again, but you stay in the same loop. And this happens because we're all making a very simple mistake, one that keeps everything stuck. And most people never even realize they're doing it. And here's the thing, the mistake is right in front of us. We're using our imagination, but we're using it wrong. When you visualize, you imagine what you want as something that's going to happen. I'm going to have money. I'm going to get that opportunity. I'm going to change my life. And that seems obvious, right? After all, we're talking about the future. We're trying to create something that doesn't exist yet. But here's the problem with that. When you always place what you want out in front of you, your mind keeps treating it as something distant. You imagine it, you feel it, you come back to reality, you realize it hasn't happened yet, and you go back to imagining again. It becomes a cycle that never resolves, it just repeats. It took me a long time to see this. There was a period where I'd wake up, do my visualization, feel all the emotion, and 5 minutes later I was checking my email to see if something had changed. I was treating the technique like preparation, not like a conclusion. And as long as you do that, your body never leaves the searching state. You act, you decide, you think like someone who's still trying to get there, and nothing really changes. But why does this happen? Why does the mind react this way when we imagine the future, but not when we remember the past? Because there's something happening that we don't notice. The mind doesn't separate imagination from memory. For your mind, anything you imagine is going to happen gets tagged as incomplete. And anything you treat as already happened gets tagged as resolved. Here's the thing. When you remember something that already happened, Your body relaxes because there's nothing left to do, it's over. But when you imagine something that's going to happen, your body stays in search mode because it's still unfinished. Think about it like this. If you remember that you went to your favorite restaurant last week, you don't wake up every day wondering, did that actually happen? You don't keep checking on it because it's already resolved in your head. But if you're imagining you're going to go there tomorrow, you keep thinking about it, anticipating, waiting. Even if the emotion feels similar, the mental state is completely different. And that's exactly what happens with what you want. You visualize it, you feel the emotion, but your mind files it as a projection. And as long as it's filed as future, you keep operating in the state of someone who doesn't have it yet. When I realized this, I finally understood why I was spending the entire day checking to see if anything had changed. I was imagining in the future, so my mind kept looking for confirmation. That's why you can't relax. That's why time feels heavy. That's why you stay in waiting mode. Because as far as your mind is concerned, it hasn't happened yet. But there's a way to use your imagination in a completely different way. And that's where everything shifts. And this is exactly the part where a lot of people understand the logic, but then freeze when it comes to actually putting it into practice. Because understanding that the problem is the waiting state is one thing. Actually catching in your everyday life which mental patterns keep pulling you back into the future, that's another. That's exactly why I started using more focused material around this shift. Content that goes deeper into this specific type of block and helps you clearly see why you might understand the concept, but keep repeating the same pattern in your financial life. For me, the difference showed up when I stopped just consuming this stuff and started seeing more objectively, where my mind was still operating from lack, urgency, and waiting. That's what started unlocking the way I thought and made decisions day to day. So if you feel like you've already understood a lot of this but still haven't been able to make that real shift in practice, the link is in the description and the pinned comment. Because now I want to show you the core technique behind all of this. And it starts when you stop imagining your desire as something in the future and start treating it as something that already happened. So instead of imagining that it's going to happen, you imagine that it already did. Not in the future. In the past. You imagine that what you want happened yesterday. Feel the difference. If you want money and you imagine I'm going to have money, you stay in the state of someone who doesn't have it yet. But if you imagine this happened yesterday, the money came in, your body processes it as resolved. And when your body processes it as resolved, you stop looking for confirmation. You relax. And when you relax, you start making decisions like someone who already has it, not someone who's still trying to get it. Because the brain processes memory and imagination the same way. It doesn't separate them. It records what you repeat with emotion. And if you repeat something as if it's in the past, it marks it as done. When I understood this, the first thing that changed was the way I made decisions. I stopped thinking, should I do this? And started thinking, what would someone who already figured this out do right now? And the answers were completely different. Because I wasn't acting like someone who needed to get there anymore. I was acting like someone who was already there. And that's where results start to show up. Because you're not speeding up time. You're changing who you are while time passes. And who you are determines what you do. And what you do determines what comes. But I know this still feels abstract, so let me show you exactly how to turn this into practice. The process is pretty straightforward. You pick one specific desire, not several, one. It could be money, an opportunity, a relationship, but pick one and focus on it. Then you shift the tense. Instead of saying, I'm going to have it, you say, this happened yesterday. Example, instead of, I'm going to receive that money, you say, I received that money yesterday. That shift in tense changes everything. Because now you're not projecting, you're remembering. And here's where the most important part comes in, the reverse review. Instead of visualizing yourself receiving the money tomorrow, you imagine yourself right now talking to someone about how you received it yesterday. Like this, you picture yourself telling a friend, dude, you're not going to believe what happened yesterday. That money came in. It finally worked out. You're not imagining the moment as it's happening. You're imagining it has already happened, and you're talking about it after the fact. That closes the mental loop because now it's become the past. And when you do this the right way, there's a sense of relief that comes, not something you force, something that shows up when you genuinely treat it as resolved. It's like when you actually solve a real problem, your body relaxes. This is the same thing. Then every night before bed, you use what I call retrospective gratitude. You give thanks for what happened yesterday. Thank you for the money that came in yesterday. Thank you for that opportunity that showed up yesterday. And you do this every day, because the more you repeat it, the more it becomes a real memory for your mind. And when it becomes memory, it becomes your state. Now, let's talk about what to actually expect when you start doing this. I'll be straight with you. The first thing that changes isn't the result out in the world, it's your internal state. In the first few days, you'll notice you stop waking up with that anxious feeling. You stop constantly checking for updates. That's the first sign it's working. Because when you treat your desire as past, your body understands there's nothing left to search for, and so it relaxes. And when your body relaxes, you start making different decisions. For me, the first thing that shifted was how I responded to opportunities. Before, whenever a chance showed up, I'd overanalyze it, afraid of making the wrong move. After I shifted my state, I started responding like someone who already had the result. I acted with less hesitation. And that happened well before the money actually showed up. Now, about external results, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That depends on a lot of things. It depends on your situation, your actions, what you're building. But what I can tell you is that when you shift your state, you start acting differently, and different action produces different results. For me, it took a few weeks to see real movement. For some people, it takes less. For others, it takes more. But the pattern is always the same. The internal shifts fast. The external responds after. And that's exactly why you can't keep measuring results every day, because that's not how this process works. You apply it, you hold the state, you act from that state, and you watch what unfolds. But there's one thing that ruins all of this, and most people do it without even realizing it. There's one thing that derails all of this, and almost nobody catches it when they start doing it. It's when someone applies a technique at night, and then the next day goes right back to engaging with reality as if nothing was ever resolved. And it's not even just the checking. Sometimes they wake up, think about the same problem the same way, talk about it with the same weight, react with the same urgency, and without realizing it, they slip right back into the old state. The mistake isn't what you did in the imagination. The mistake is abandoning that state the moment the day begins. It took me a while to catch this, because sometimes I do the reverse review, feel the genuine sense of relief, but then all it took was one conversation, one unexpected bill, one stressful moment, and I was right back to thinking like everything was still unresolved. And that's when the effect breaks down. So the point here is simple. It's not just about imagining and forgetting. It's about protecting the state you created. Another thing that really gets in the way is trying to force the feeling. Someone closes their eyes, imagines the scene, feels nothing, and then starts pressuring themselves to feel relief, certainty, gratitude. But the harder they push, the more artificial it gets, and the mind picks up on that. When that happens, instead of trying to feel more, try making the scene more concrete. Because the right feeling almost always shows up when the situation feels real enough that your mind stops arguing with it. And here's an error that holds a lot of people back without them noticing. The scene is too vague. The person imagines that it worked out, but doesn't see anything clearly. No context, no detail, no specific phrase, no particular moment. And if there's no clear experience, your mind has nothing to actually record. For me, things changed when I stopped imagining loose outcomes and started reviewing a simple moment as if I was genuinely remembering a conversation that had already taken place. That's when the technique started feeling a lot more natural. And there's one more thing that makes a lot of people feel like this doesn't work. Using the technique once, having a good feeling in that moment, and then spending the rest of the week living in the opposite state. In that case, the problem isn't the technique. It's that a single scene can't hold anything up if the rest of your day keeps feeding the feeling of lack. This practice works best when it becomes a return point. When you notice you've drifted out of the state, you come back. No drama, no self-judgment, you just come back. Now that you understand what can accelerate this and what can quietly sabotage it along the way, let me show you a simple way to start doing this right. If I were starting this over today, I'd keep it as simple as possible. First, I pick just one desire, not 3, not 5, not my whole life at once. 1, because the biggest mistake people make after getting fired up from a video like this is trying to apply everything all at once and ending up sustaining nothing. So pick one specific thing, something that, if it changed, would already make a real difference for you. Then tonight, before you go to sleep, I'd sit for a few minutes and do exactly what we've built here together. I'd imagine one short, simple scene as if this had already happened yesterday. Not a long movie, just a moment, a conversation, a message, one sentence you'd hear if it was already resolved, like someone saying, "So everything worked out yesterday, right?" And you responding, already feeling that weight lifted. The point here isn't to force emotion, it's to let the scene become clear enough that your mind stops treating it as something far away. When the scene clicks, the relief comes more naturally, and even if it's subtle, that's okay. You don't need to feel an explosion. You just need to notice that for a few moments, it stopped feeling like an open problem. Then you repeat this for at least 7 days, without testing 1,000 different versions, without switching desires halfway through, without turning it into some complicated ritual. 7 days with the same logic, as simply as possible. Because what we're doing here is pulling the desire out of the waiting zone and starting to turn it into a consistent internal memory. And there's a simple way to know you're on the right track. You start to stop seeking confirmation all the time. The urgency fades. The anxiety loses its grip. You stop spending the whole day trying to check if it's happened yet. And that right there is already a sign of change, because before it shows up on the outside, the first real shift happens in how you start relating to it on the inside. So start like this, simple, without trying to do it perfectly, without trying to force everything to accelerate. Because at the end of the day, this was never about controlling time. It was about changing who you're being inside of it. And when that changes, the way your reality response starts to change too. If you apply this the right way, the first shift isn't going to show up on the clock. It's going to show up in how your mind stops pushing everything into later. Because when you start reviewing your desire as something that already happened, instead of something that still needs to happen, you break that waiting cycle that drains your energy, attention, and decision making all day long. That alone changes a lot. Now, let me be real with you. A lot of people understand this logic, get excited today, and 2 or 3 days from now, they're right back to the old pattern without even noticing. Back to treating the problem like it's still pending, back to searching for signs, back to living in urgency. And it's exactly to prevent that automatic slide backward that I left the material in the description and the pinned comment. Because it doesn't just touch the idea, it helps you sustain this shift with more clarity, especially around money, which is where most people stay stuck for years without understanding why. So if you're tired of feeling like you learn, you get it, but you can't hold on to it long enough for your life to actually start responding differently, check out the link, try it and see if it resonates. And answer this in the comments, something really specific. What would your "it happened yesterday" scene look like? What situation would you review tonight before you go to sleep to pull that desire out of the future and bring it into now? Because when you can actually name that scene, it stops being abstract and starts getting real. Subscribe to the channel because If this kind of video helped you organize something that felt confusing before, this is exactly what you'll find here every week. Content that pulls manifestation out of pretty theory and into actual practice, real logic, and genuine change. And if someone came to mind while watching this, someone who's always anxious, always trying to control deadlines, outcomes, and looking for confirmation, send them this video. Sometimes what holds someone back isn't a lack of effort, it's just being stuck in the wrong way of thinking. And in the next video, we go even deeper into the mental mechanisms that make someone stop just wishing and actually start shifting their state for real. Because in the end, it's not about making time move faster. It's about stopping the habit of living like you're always running behind. See you in the next one.